during the course of our program, you could call us live on Freedom 106.5 FM via our studio numbers 627-3223, 625-2257, and you could also send us your medical questions on WhatsApp 306-1065 to speak to Dr. Batson. Good afternoon, Dr. Batson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Govind. So how are you doing?
Fine, thanks. Hope all is well with you and the team.
Definitely. Let me say a pleasant good afternoon to the listeners of Freedom 106.5 FM. Always a pleasure to be in your company, discussing health from a natural and integrated perspective. As regards to our last program, we had a discussion where we touched a bit on dementia. We spoke a bit of on Alzheimer's as well. And we had a few questions. Some of those questions covered the cardiovascular system. So we had some questions on circulation, and we also had some questions as regards to hormonal imbalance. Today's program, we're going to touch a bit on issues associated with kidney or renal failure. And the reason why I decided to speak about that today, because of our high diabetic numbers in Trinidad and Tobago and our high hypertensive numbers, we tend to have a high incidence of renal failure, various issues associated with kidney problems, nephrotic syndrome, nephritis, and different aspects associated with kidney imbalance. So we're going to touch a bit on kidney health. We're going to focus on, who really needs to pay attention. What are some of the ailments that actually increase the likelihood of you developing a kidney problem? And, what are some of the things to look for? It's very important that individuals, really, dot their I's and cross their T's as regards to diagnosis, and especially early detection too, because the problem with a lot of individuals, if certain things are detected earlier, it makes it much easier for them to actually have improvement and not reach the state where you actually end up chronic. And that situation could now become fatal. Right, so that's what we're going to be discussing. Keep in mind that we are live on our social media platforms. We are Batson and Associates Limited on Facebook. On Instagram, we are Batson and Associates TT. And on YouTube, we are Batson and Associates Trinidad. Let me say a pleasant good afternoon to Ms. Denise Hurst. She's actually listening from Antigua. So those of you who, may want more information on Batson and Associates, what we do, various testimonies, that type of thing, definitely social media is the place to be, especially Facebook. You have all the lives and whatnot there. Keep in mind as well as our locations. We are located in Chaguanas, Debe, St. James, and Tobago. So I'm going to give you those numbers in a while. So we know the importance of the kidney. The kidney actually is an organ of detoxification in the body. It plays a significant role in the removal of waste. Things like creatinine, bone, potassium, these type of things. It plays a significant role almost from the aspect of a filtration system in the body. Now, the thing with the kidneys, as I said, it is a major organ of detoxification. You have 7 in the body: kidney, colon, bloodstream, liver, lymphatic system, skin, and your lungs. And, I often use the analogy. I tell persons, if 7 persons supposed to go to work, all in different areas, operations, accounts, warehousing, whatever the case may be, and 4 of those persons are out sick, it means that in order for that organization to run effectively, maybe the other 3 persons going to have to pick up the slack for the missing 4. And that analogy could be brought over to the body as regards to what really happens with our organs of elimination. That when one is not functioning as it should, then it places a lot of pressure and a lot of stress on other organs. And the same applies to things like your kidney, colon, bloodstream, liver, lymphatic system, skin, and your lungs as regards to that particular analogy. The persons who need to be very careful where kidney and renal problems are concerned are definitely persons who are hypertensive, more so than diabetes. I always tell persons that because the common thought is that once you're a diabetic, you are at risk of having renal problems, and that is true. However, when you are hypertensive, it is even a greater risk, maybe in about the 95th or 98th percentile, simply because of the fine network of circulation and vessels in the kidneys themselves. The nephrons in the kidneys are very fine in terms of their circulatory system. That is what we call microcirculation. So when you have high pressure coming from the renal artery, for example, into those smaller blood vessels, you can have those vessels basically stretching and damaging. And as a result of that, the kidney does not have the ability to filter as it should. And you know, when you do your standard blood test, they would look at your creatinine, bond, potassium. There's also a test known as a EGFR, which is the glomerular filtration rate, which actually tells them what level your kidney is at. And the level is, you have 1, you have 2, you have 3A, 3B, 4, and 5. You always want to be maybe like around 3A, go up. So you want to be like 1, 2, 3. You don't want to be 3B, 4, and 5. Because when you're in those numbers, it means that the functionality of the kidney is significantly compromised. And of course, the greater the likelihood of you ending up with renal failure and having to be placed on dialysis, which is no fun at all. Right? So those are some of the things that you need to pay very close attention to. I mean, at Batson and Associates, there are a number of protocols that we would design to actually assist an individual who has kidney problems. Now, let's come to the controversial part. A lot of persons will tell you, okay, if your kidney has reached a particular stage, then it cannot be corrected. I beg to differ, and I totally disagree with that, because I have had instances where persons came to us, just up to recently, there was this elderly individual that we dealt with, 75 years, and they came to us at 3B. And in 4 weeks, in working with them, they moved from 3B to 3A, where the that number, the level actually went up by 10. So in that particular instance, we were actually able to see improvement, and that was only in 4 months. And not 4 months, sorry, 4 weeks. And of course, there are other instances where we had stage 5, and we worked with them for 6 months, and that person moved from 5, and they went up to 3A. Which, I mean, that's massive improvement. You know, so there are things that could be done in that particular situation, but of course, there are certain dietary requirements that need to be paid attention to and that type of thing. So let me just give you the opportunity to remind the listeners of the contact information. So if they do have a question, keep in mind, the question doesn't necessarily have to pertain to the topic that we're discussing. You know, any health issue or any of the product services of Batson and Associates, they can, of course, feel free to ask their questions. So over to you, Govin.
Definitely. So, of course, our messaging system on WhatsApp, 306-1065. You could also give us a call on 627-3223, 625-2257. A question, Dr. Batson, about any foods that could help improve a person's health for their kidney.
Okay, yeah. In terms of food, what persons would have access to, you always want to have your fiber, high fiber intake. People don't understand how vital fiber is to health in general. You have 2 types of fibers primarily. You have soluble fiber, which is primarily processed in the bloodstream and plays a significant role in how your body actually deals with glucose and actually break down food. And then you have insoluble fiber, which is primarily utilized in the small and large intestines. And what that does is actually decrease the transit time of your bowel movement and makes that whole gastrointestinal system more effective. But what it also does, it plays a significant role in kidney health, simply because, as I said, soluble fiber would improve blood circulation. It would also improve blood glucose levels. In addition to that, you want things like parsley, celery. Those are always very good for the kidneys. A huge advocate of proper hydration. I mean, anyone who knows me and know when I give lectures and whatnot, I always pay attention to hydration, because I tell persons the human body is 70% water, and that particular organ system, the kidneys, urinary system, water is very important for that system. Now, you're going to have a bit of controversy here, in the sense that there are some persons, if you start to show early signs of renal problems, usually it is recommended for your water intake to be decreased. Now, that is something that you have to take under proper advisement. And that practitioner, that doctor, whoever you're dealing with, would of course have to have access to information in terms of your blood reports, if kidney ultrasounds were done, whatever the case may be. From where I sit in terms of experience, in some instances, you do not want to decrease water too quickly because that could actually further exacerbate the kidney situation. So in an instance like that, I would have to have a consultation done where I'd be able to know, your levels in terms of your bond, your creatinine, the EGFR. Erythrocyte sedimentation ratio also plays a big role, or what we call in blood work, when you look at the ESR, and ESR would show the level of inflammation in the body. Very important test, especially when you're dealing with persons who may have some sort of autoimmune condition. In fact, next week program, that is what I'm going to discuss, because we have so many persons with autoimmune conditions now, lupus, things looking like lupus, myasthenia gravis, and those type of things, right? As it relates to that particular kidney diet, you also want to ensure that you have nutrient-dense foods in the diet as well, and that is where supplementation comes in, and that's one of the things we specialize in at Batson and Associates. There's a particular product. I'm a huge advocate of tea, and that's because of my studies as it relates to Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and a lot of persons do not know that tea has a component in it known as tannins, Tannins. If you do research, you'd realize that tannins actually give, it's almost similar to chlorophyll in the whole spectrum of plants, and simply because what it does, it actually gives tea their particular color. Now, the advantage with that, you have things known as anthocyanins, and which basically is just a big term for things like antioxidants and that type of thing. And we know with disease and breakdown in the body, oxidative stress and inflammatory response plays a significant role. Anyone who is very sick and anyone who has any imbalance in the body, whether it be diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune conditions, whether it be rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and whatever the case may be, there is high levels of inflammation in the body. There is high levels of imbalance, and that is where you need to actually now bring back the body to where it needs to be. The basic aspect of nutrition, and as it relates to what we're speaking about with kidneys, let me say this quickly. Of all the organs in the human body, based on anatomy and physiology, the kidney, apart from your heart, responds to exercise positively, very quickly too. So someone who may have a situation where they've seen higher levels of bond, higher levels of creatinine, they may do the EGFR and their numbers, maybe they may be a stage 4 or stage 5. Under proper advisement, you could always get a consultation from us. Exercise, and it doesn't have to moderate exercise. We're not talking about anything strenuous. The kidney is going to actually respond to that. Research has shown that, and even in my personal experience with dealing with clients, I have seen that. So that's something you definitely want to take into consideration. You could also get on to us as it relates to, there's a product we carry which deals specifically with kidney health, to actually help in improving creatinine, improving bond, and actually improving the functionality of the kidney. And that is a particular protocol that would also include diet. Because, when you have a situation with your kidneys, the diet is important because you can use foods with potassium in them. However, you're going to have to watch the potassium intake. You can't take all the food out of the diet because that doesn't make any sense, because in some cases, leaching is recommended. Leaching is when you would actually soak, like things like your provision and those type of foods. They allow you to soak it for a period of time. Now, that is important, yes, but it cannot be overdone, and it cannot be done before a specific time. Because what happens with a lot of those individuals is that because the food that they now consume is so, how was the word I want to use? It's nutritionally deficient. Because you have to understand, in soaking the food, not only the potassium is going to come out, there are a number of other things that are going to be removed from there. And the objective with nutrition is to renew and regenerate. So if the nutrition is now devoid of a lot of things that is capable of doing that, you're actually spinning top in mud. You're not going to get the type of results that you want. So you can feel free to give us a call or visit if that is your situation and you want some sort of consultation, you want a second opinion, then feel free to do that. You could always contact us, our Shogunas office, which is located on the first floor of Money Talks building. That is Money Talks building in Montrose, Shogunas. That telephone number is 222-8261. That's 222-8261. The Debe office is located on the corner of Ramsonwood Trace and the SS Erie Main Road in Debe. That telephone number is 223-7515. That's 223-7515. Keep in mind, we are live on our social media platforms. We are Batson and Associates Limited on Facebook. On Instagram, we are Batson and Associates TT. And on YouTube, we are Batson and Associates Trinidad. Over to you, sir.
And we greet all of our listeners listening to us on air 106.5 FM. Some messages are coming in to us on WhatsApp. You too can send us your messages on WhatsApp 306-1065. You can also give us a call live on air and pose your questions to Dr. Batson. Our studio number 627-3223, 625-2257. Good day. How essential is CMOS for women and how often should they use it?
All right, interesting question. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of CMOS. I tell persons because it is a nutrient-dense food. All nutrient-dense foods mean simply that they are dense or contain a lot of nutrients. The thing is, marine phytoplankton nutrition, so things like CMOS, fucoidan, and various other aspects, they have high nutrient value. So in terms of its benefit for men and women, you have some pluses there because you have things like selenium, manganese, magnesium. Selenium has been shown in a lot of research to help in issues associated with cancer. In fact, most persons, when they are diagnosed with cancer, if you look at deficiencies and you look at those different aspects as regards to macro and micro deficiencies in the body, a lot of them have selenium deficiency, apart from serious gastrointestinal problems, things like early signs of GERD, which is gastrointestinal reflux disease, or even it might go so bad as things like IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, which is a inflammatory bowel condition, or even things like leaky gut. So in that particular instance, you find that is going to help with that. And that is something we also carry at Batson Associates, because I have recommended it for so many persons. I had no other choice but to actually go and source a very good brand. So we do carry CMOS at Batson Associates. I always tell persons, prepare it for yourself. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I'm busy and okay, it didn't take any 10 hours to do that. You prepare it, you keep it in your refrigerator, and it's a very easy thing. It's also very good for children as well. I mean, you could take it like maybe a tablespoon for adults, and children could have like a level teaspoon, and you could add it to smoothies. You could put it in your tea, that type of thing, and it does help with with a number of things because of its nutrient dense components. So that's a definite plus, male and female, and even little children, young children.
As well. There's another question. Good afternoon, Dr. Batson. If your blood platelet is 480 and your PCT number is 48, can you talk about this? If I'm fighting any bacterial infections or so. Thank you.
Okay, so let me see if I can get that. Repeat that. The platelet was how much?
So the platelet count was 480. And PCT number was 48.
Okay, PCT, they send me back to school day with that one, I don't know. Let me see. Okay, off the top of my head, what I would say in a condition like that, when you're looking at blood, okay, so we go in from the aspect of hematology now. Your platelets are supposed to be within a particular range. Honestly, off the top of my head, I cannot remember what is the range that it's supposed to. If your platelets are higher than they're supposed to, then that is an indication of imbalance. But usually it has a lot to do, if we go in, not necessarily symptomology, but we're looking at root cause. We need to look at the musculoskeletal system. And I'll tell you why. So I'm going to answer the question in a general sense, in that when you're looking at blood and blood disorders, so we're looking at people, for example, who may be anemic, persons who may have sickle cell or sickle cell trait, because that's a broad category because you have different aspects of sickle cell, even people with things like thalassemia and those type of things. So we're speaking about imbalances of the blood from the perspective of hematology. What I can say is you need to pay attention to your musculoskeletal system. Red blood cells are produced in your bone marrow. People who have serious issues with their blood, like sicklers and those type of things, usually you would hear someone saying you need to do a bone marrow transplant. Now, I may not necessarily agree with that to the full extent, because again, the reason why you have that particular issue is because that there's some imbalance in the body. So in a case like that, anyone who has any sort of blood condition, and I've treated people locally, internationally with thalassemia, sickle cell, and that type of thing. And all of them have gotten exceptionally good results, less hospitalization, less instances of episodes and that type of thing, because of how we put their protocol together and that type of thing. So to answer it in a general sense, I would say in order to have very healthy blood, proper balanced blood, you must ensure that your musculoskeletal system, which is your bones, tendons, ligaments, they are optimal in terms of their function and nutrition associated with that, as well as your gastrointestinal system. And I'll give you a very quick example. There's a disease known as Chagas disease. There's also one known as toxoplasmosis. Now, Chagas disease is a disease where pathogens leave the intestines and it utilizes or it feeds on the wall of the heart, right? And toxoplasmosis is where you have, again, pathogens, which would either be bacteria, viruses, fungus, protozoa, or worms. And that leaves the intestines, finds itself up into the brain and actually goes to the back of the eyes and consume the tissue at the back of the eyes. So I'm just giving those two examples to help you to understand that when you have a situation with leaky gut, which there are a lot of people who are walking around and they have leaky gut. Now, a leaky gut is not an easy thing to fix from a Western medical standpoint, simply because you're going to be given antibiotics. Now, I'm not saying that antibiotics are bad. What I am saying, you have to understand when you're dealing with categorization of pathogens. So antibiotics cannot treat viruses, nor can they treat fungus. Now, they're gonna cause some confusion inside of there, but they're gonna make those individuals, for want of a better expression, more ferocious, if you want to put it like that. So because pathogens have the ability to change very quickly. So that's something that you need to pay very close attention to. And that's one of the things that we specialize in at Batson and Associates. We have some new services coming in next year as regards to a gastrointestinal clinic, because I have seen in my experience with treated, even dealing with people with cancer, because we do protocols for cancer nutrition. And because if you have cancer or you have been diagnosed with cancer and you're doing your chemotherapy, you're doing your radiation, which will always be a personal choice, in my opinion, you have to ensure that nutrition is fundamental in order for you to go through that successfully, right? And that's one of the things we do at Batson and Associates, and ensuring that gastrointestinal health is optimal, because even in aspects associated with cancer, diabetes, a lot of people don't know that all diabetics, before you became a diabetic, you actually had a gastrointestinal problem. Your food was not digesting properly. That's the first part of diabetes before you actually become a diabetic, whether it's type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or type 5 diabetes. It starts off with malabsorption. It means your food is not digesting properly. There are a lot of us, we eat healthy, you exercise, you're drinking water, you're taking your supplements, and you're still sick. So it means that your body is not utilizing what you are taking in. How do you correct that? And that's why we do something known as live nutritional blood cell analysis. I tell persons, if you were to take all the diagnostics devices in the world, a CT scan machine, a MRI, ultrasound, all of them, and you stack it next to a proper microscope with someone who's trained in blood microscopy and hematology and who understands blood, listen to me, there isn't a problem that you cannot determine the causative factor for, because blood is life. The thing is, blood is responsible for two things in the human body. It's responsible for transporting oxygen and nutrients to cells. So if the transport, for want of a better expression, so if your car shut down, you can't go anywhere. So if your blood is unhealthy, you are hypertensive, you may have problems with diabetes, you have rheumatoid arthritis, you always have pain. Every day you have pain, you have back pain, waist pain, neck pain, you always in pain. The secret lies in the blood. What is going on there? Do you have proper, is the blood count correct? Is it in terms of the pathogen aspect? Because, for example, very quickly again, there's something known as Candida albicans. Now, Candida is a fungus that we're supposed to have. All of us have it, but you're supposed to have it in very small amounts. When you have Candida overgrowth, or what we call systemic overgrowth of Candida, which a lot of people have and they don't know, the people who have LOTA, if you have a lot of problems with dandruff, if you have been diagnosed with things like alopecia, eczema, atopic dermatitis, lichen planus, you have a bad yeast problem. And when you have that, you're going to be spinning top in mud, because all those things are now a manifestation of all these pathogens inside of you that doing two things primarily. All living organisms eat and they excrete. So think about it. We're talking about billions, trillions of pathogens inside of your body, and all they're doing is taking your food when you eat and they are excreting in your body. There is that you're now in a situation, moving quickly, of something we call auto-intoxication. Auto is self, intoxication is poison. Over to you, sir.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, of course, reminding our listeners that they could give us their calls on the 627-3223, 625-2257. A couple of listeners were trying to call us on the WhatsApp number. Unfortunately, the WhatsApp is only for text messages. You can send us your questions there, 306-1065. Hi, doctor. Question on high blood sugar. If the insulin in the blood is not getting into my cells to reduce glucose and building up, should I still take insulin tablets and increase usage of it?
Oh, that's actually a very good question. The thing is, when you're dealing with diabetes, right? So we understand fundamentally what diabetes is. Diabetes is high levels of glucose in the blood. Now, based on the description that individual just gave there, they are basically describing a type 2 diabetic situation, because type 1 diabetes is when the insulin production is too low. People tell you that your body is not producing insulin. That is not true. The production may be low, the pancreas may be lazy, the pancreas may have gone on holidays, it may be lethargic, but it's not dead. So there is some production taking place. It may not be much. With type 2 diabetes, insulin is being produced. The problem is the receptor cells that has the responsibility. They operate as keys, as if they're opening doors in order to store the glucose in the cells where your body is going to later utilize it as energy. Now, in a case like that, a lot of times, sometimes insulin makes the situation worse, because you're actually ending up more, because the thing is, the more insulin you take, the higher the blood sugar goes in. A lot of the times, in the beginning of the diabetic protocol, it may work, but eventually you're going to reach a stage, and I've seen this, we have had clients like that. Let me say a pleasant good day to the consultants that work with me, Ms. Karishma Ramdan, Mr. Paul Green, Rene Bastamante, and Mr. Vialva. And one of the things that you always see with persons who use insulin, well, one, your eyes tend to be damaged very, very quickly, and that's because of the constant up and down, where the sugar is very high, the sugar is very low, very high, very low, very high, very low, very high, very low. And that seesaw up and down causes excessive stress on the body from a cellular level, which is why diabetics tend to have a lot of problems with their eyes. There are problems with circulation, which make them excellent candidates for amputation because of that poor circulation situation. So what you have to do, again, when you're dealing with diabetes primarily, not all diabetics are the same. That's the next thing. I mean, we are essentially the same as individuals, but we are all different. So a lot of the times, your assessment has to be separated and apart from a general assessment. And then when we determine that way, so let me give you a quick example. So you might have someone who is diabetic, or who becomes diabetic as a result of hormonal imbalance. Like women, for example, when women go through menopause. So when a female is either premenopause, which we know is before menopause, menopause, or postmenopause, because of the hormonal imbalance in her body, she can now become a diabetic. But the diabetes is caused because of the hormonal imbalance or the hormonal changes as a result of menopause. So how do you treat a diabetic like that? Is it that you're going to treat that diabetic the same way that you're going to treat someone who has gestational diabetes, which is diabetes as a result of pregnancy, which again has some hormonal attributes associated with the diabetes? And that is where proper assessment comes in. So, you could feel free to give us a call or visit. We do have that special where we do our blood analysis, the live blood, dry blood, the magnetic resonance analysis. And I always tell persons, once you come in for that consultation or those tests, walk with every test you have, every blood test that you have ever done, any scan, you just bring it. Because the objective is to gather as much information as it relates to you as an individual. And once we do that, then we're actually able to say, okay, sir, ma'am, this is where you are, this is where you want to be, and this is what you need to do in order to get from point A to point B. The rule doesn't necessarily apply to everyone.
Right. We've got some more questions coming in, Dr. Batson.
Yes, sir.
I'm a female approaching the age of 44. What is recommended for premenopausal or menopausal symptoms?
Oh, good question. So in a case like that, okay, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So at Batson Associates, there's a product we have one called Female Balance. There's one called Women's Formula. There's also a product we have called Nerve Restore. Excellent product. We don't have that in stock right now, but we're taking, we're on back order for that. So we should get that by the end of the month. So what a female who is going through menopause needs to do, first of all, you need to understand that your endocrine system, which is your glands, right? So thyroid, parathyroid, pituitary, adrenal, those are where you need to focus. Gastrointestinal, there, hydration, of course. Again, hydration helps everything, Trinidad and Tobago, every single thing. If you drink enough water, proper quality of water, you're gonna have less issues. Okay, so with that being said now, we're looking at bringing back balance to the endocrine system. So you're looking at things like your thyroid, your parathyroid, your pituitary. In the mapping of the human body as it relates to anatomy and physiology, your pituitary is your master gland. That controls all the other glands in the body. Then you have things like when you look at what is known as your autonomic nervous system, which is parasympathetic, sympathetic. Now, because women when you're going through menopause, so you have an endocrine situation, which is in turn going to cause a hormonal situation, which is in turn going to cause a central nervous system problem, which is why women could have problems with, apart from the hot flashes, they have serious anxiety, serious depression, serious insomnia. So you're looking at things like Women's Formula, Female Balance, Nerve Restore. But again, in order to dot our I's and cross our T's, as we should, a consultation is recommended. So at least we have all the information and we can now say, okay, ABC, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. And once you do that, you don't have a problem.
Another question coming in. Good afternoon, doctor. Can you recommend anything for heavy growth of E. coli bacteria in the urinary tract?
Whoa, yeah, that's a serious situation there. The thing is, if E. coli tends to migrate, as obviously in that situation, so it can be intestines, urinary tract, that type of thing. So most likely that person would have used antibiotics. They may have used different types of antibiotics over a period of time. What you have to understand with that in terms of the recommendation, and again with that, you're going to have to get a consultation, which, we could do at short notice for you, because I would need to know exactly how long that situation has existed and what antibiotics may have been used in the past. What I could say off the top of my head is that pathogens, again, have the ability to store themselves in tissues or hide in tissues for years. When I say years, I talk about 25 years, 50 years, 30 years. Just recently, I was looking at some information where these polar ice caps that melt in, they had some archaeologists up there. And one of the things that they actually found, so there was this set of ice that melted, and they actually found some pathogens in the ice. The thing is, these pathogens weren't dead. They were actually quite alive. and they carried them in the lab and they looked at them and whatnot. And these pathogens were actually millions of years old. So that's just to help you to understand that when you're dealing with pathogens, bacteria, virus, fungus, in this particular case, E. coli, they have a tendency that they're going to hide in the tissue of the urethra. They could attach themselves to various parts of the bladder, and they're going to stay in a place where they're not going to cause too much problem yet. But when they realize the immune system is not as functional as it should, that's when they start to give problems. So we're going to have to do a proper assessment, and then based on that assessment, now the recommendation is going to be made. All natural, we're going to include some foods in there. What I could tell you off the top, one time, again, increase your hydration. You should decrease sugars because we know pathogens love sugars. So decrease the use of processed sugars and that type of thing. I would also recommend that you do some sort of regime that would include maybe a grain of garlic, 2 stalks of celery, and a sweet pepper. At least you blend that, and if you drink that maybe like about twice for the week, you're going to start to see some sort of results where that is concerned. And then, of course, we have things like the silver with the mineral formula, inflammation formula. But again, more information, you bring your blood test, that type of thing, and we dot our I's and cross our T's responsibly where that is concerned.
Another question coming in. Good afternoon. What is the normal blood pressure for someone, a male in their 80s, and in 60? Okay, so for a male that's in their 80s and also a male for in their 60s.
Okay, let me see if I get you here. So what they're asking, the question is, what is a good blood pressure reading for a male that is in what age?
Yeah, so a male that's within his 80s, and for another male that's in his 60s.
Okay, good. The thing is, when you're looking at blood pressure, I mean, you normally hear people say systolic, which is your top number, diastolic is your lower number. They normally tell you 120/80. I mean, in practicality, someone in the 60s, I mean, unless you're a very active individual, you may have played sports, your diet is optimal, you drink proper water, you might be able to get that reading. The thing is, if you read about a 130/80, 85, your diastolic always should not really pass 85, regardless of your age. I mean, the only babies, of course, going to have different pressure and pulses and that type of thing because they're babies. But adults and seniors, if you get like a 130/85 or 135/85, we could live with that. When you start to go over that, then it becomes a bit problematic, especially for the kidneys and the heart and that type of thing. So I would say 135/85 is good. If you do have a problem with blood pressure, pay attention to your meat intake. Meat, because of the breakdown and of protein and nitrogenous waste, you usually find that people who consume a lot of meat, especially red meat, tend to be hypertensive. So you may have to decrease your meat intake, try and use more fish, and of course, look at your water intake, that type of thing. There's a product we carry at Batson Associates called inflammation formula, and there's also one known as balanced circulation. And that was a product that we actually had gotten specifically for persons with hypertension, because we had some really terrible hypertension cases, 200 and something over 1, which I mean is madness. And we were actually able to help getting them into that situation. Hypertension always works well or augurs well with exercise. And someone in the 80s, of course, you're not going to do anything strenuous. If you are in a situation where you are still mobile, thank God, you do some little mild, easy walking, and you could do that home. Or if it is you have one of those bikes, and you with supervision, you have someone there, and you do maybe a 5 minutes or maybe a 10 minutes 3 times a week. But some sort of exercise, even stretching, deep breathing is actually going to help that entire situation, apart from maybe specific supplementation, that type of thing. Because what we do at Batson Associates primarily, and my area of specialization, apart from diabetes, is clinical nutrition, which is nutrition for disease. So, a lot of persons think when they hear natural, they automatically think you're making reference to herbs, which is not the case. I mean, I have vitamin therapy, we do enzyme therapy, we do anthocyanins. So it depends. So it depends on what you're dealing with. But keep in mind that nutrition is broad in its spectrum. I mean, if people only understand, there's something known as automolecular medicine, which I did. And that is actually medicine where you're looking at supplementation, whether it be vitamin, mineral, enzyme, vitamin C therapy, whatever the case may be, to deal with a specific situation or imbalance in the body. So I suggest you give us a call. That number again, the number for head office is 222-8261. That's 222-8261. And they, of course, would send you to any of the other offices in terms of the numbers, and you'd be able to get the necessary assistance. As I said, if you have intentions of visiting us, bring every single test that you have, whether it's an X-ray, a CT scan, an MRI. We are able to understand them, and that, of course, is going to be a plus in the assessment of your particular situation.
Another question coming in, for persons that have PCOS, can you assist them? Are there any products that they can use?
Persons who have, repeat that word for me, sorry, I didn't hear.
PCOS, I believe, polycystic ovaries.
Oh, okay, right. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, quickly, we can deal with that quite successfully too. That's hormonal imbalance. Now, let me say something quickly here that may appear to be controversial for the ladies. Women usually have very bad gastrointestinal problems. And the reason for that is that women usually do not drink as much water as they should because, the situation and the bathroom situation and that type of thing. So, you don't want to be on the highway driving and, you get a call for that particular situation. Yes. Yeah. So the thing is, women usually tend to negate and leave out water. When you do that, you end up with serious gastrointestinal problems. There are a lot of, beautiful looking young ladies, and they have serious problems with constipation. I remember having a client, and I've seen it on numerous occasions, where they go and they do an ultrasound. And in the ultrasound actually, the sonographer or the radiographer, whoever does it, they're going to say fecal loading. Now, so we're talking about feces, fecal matter that has actually backed up in the intestines. Now, you have to understand, based on anatomy and physiology and placement of organs, your uterus is basically just to the front of your colon. So you find that people don't understand that pathogens can cross. Your small intestines is a semi-permeable membrane, it's primarily a strainer. So what happens to women with polycystic ovaries? All of them have some gastrointestinal problem, and that gastrointestinal problem has caused a situation where pathogens can leave the intestines and go over to the uterine area and cause serious hormonal imbalance, toxicity, and that's how women end up with things like fibroids, polycystic ovarian syndrome, adenomyosis, even endometriosis, which is thickening of the uterine lining. A lot of them have poor circulation in the womb area. And because of that poor circulation, we know the importance of blood, and blood is responsible for transporting oxygen and nutrients to cells. So if you have poor circulation in your uterus, you're going to have problems with conceiving, you're going to have problems with your menstrual cycle. I always tell women, anytime you have a painful menstrual cycle, something is wrong with you. Something is seriously wrong with you. That is not normal. I mean, you could get a little bloating, a little discomfort, you might be in a little bad mood, okay, we forgive you for that. But when you have a menstrual cycle where you have to be taking painkillers day before, during, and after, and you can't go to work and say, no, something is wrong. Your body is telling you, listen to me. We dying down here, something not right. And you have to now take the onus and see what is going on with you, because situations like that always get worse. And when they reach the point of being very bad, then you are left with no choice but to do a hysterectomy, which is the surgical removal of your uterus. And then if you're lucky, the doctors may keep your ovaries, but surgically, when you go inside there, depending on what you see, the doctors can't save that. So they're going to do a total hysterectomy, and that is our next whole, issue and problem that you're going to have later on in life. Okay,
so just about a minute or so before we wrap up, Dr. Batson, so can you share with our listeners how they can reach you, either at your locations or by the phone or social media?
Yes.
There'll be some great info for our listeners.
Definitely, yes. So that telephone number again for the Shogunas office, which, as I said, you can call that office and they'll direct you to any of the others. That telephone number for Shogunas is 222-8261. That's 222-8261. And of course, our social media, we are Batson and Associates Limited on Facebook. On Instagram, we are Batson and Associates TT. And on YouTube, we are Batson and Associates Trinidad. If you want to send WhatsApp, The WhatsApp number you can WhatsApp us would be 314. That's 314-9975. You have been listening to Dr. Jason Batson, the Senior Medical Director at Batson and Associates. And as we always say at Batson and Associates, if you think health is expensive, try sickness. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Govind, thank you so very much for your time. Let me say thank you very much to the listeners of 106.5 FM for allowing me into their household. And till next week, God bless, be safe on the roads, and we will see. Take care, sir.
Thank you so much. That, of course, was our special segment right here on Freedom 106.5.
Yes, so social media family. Let me see. We actually have we don't have too much time to spare. Let me just say quickly a pleasant good afternoon to Melissa Richards, Miss Pamela Moses, Miss Claudia Savory, Grace Williams, Brenda Newton, Cheryl Cooper, Miss Elizabeth Nandlal. So we going over now to DJ Mamu Radio TT.com, and we're going to be starting that maybe like about 2:15, and we go from 2:15 to about 3:15. Anyway, about 2:10, 2:15 there, and that's going to be an hour.
So the question that he was not able to answer because of how short that program was,
yeah,
he would be able to answer. So if you have some questions they wanted answered, you could just hop back on and just send him a message, and he will be answering those questions.
Yes, we reach a stage now, well, which is good. I'm glad. These frequencies now we're getting people to actually ask questions, which is good, right? I mean, people knowing about the program, and most importantly, they're getting help. Okay, so you could join us again. That's DJ Mamu Radio TT.com, and you're gonna say something. And you could join us for that. So we'll be taking our leave here. What are you going to say?
If we can answer one question before I jump on the next one. Just this one question.
Pamela Moses say, you're on a roll. What's the question?
I'll put it up on the screen there now.
All right, so Shakil pull up a question. Michelle Cooper, could a neck manipulation cause someone to have a stroke? Yeah. When I say neck manipulation, in terms of if they were damaged, if they hit their head or something like that, yeah, that can cause some problems. You could always get some more information for us, and we could go from there. Okay, so social media, we're going to come out of this live, and we're going to be starting a new live in a bit for DJ Mamu Radio TT.com, and that's going to be an hour, and I'm going to see if I can answer as much of your questions as possible. Shakil does ever talk. Shakil does ever talk like a Trini. Honey Bay, I don't know what that means. So we'll see you guys in a bit. Take care. God bless. How we see yours.